Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
Alrighty, hey folks, this is Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you, transmitting live once again from the Asylum Studios, from the Pimple on the backside of Texas, the beautiful city of Eagle Pass, and of course, doing the very best that we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we can muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. How you doing, folks? It is Monday. Monday. But it is Christmas week. The countdown has begun. If you're into counting down for Christmas, maybe you have young kids and you like to do that kind of stuff. But counting down to Christmas. Looking forward to tonight's show, too, by the way. Just want to let you know. I think it's going to be a fantastic show. I think it's going to be really informative, and I think you're really going to be in for a treat with this one. Our guest, Craig Meriwether, he's waiting for us in the backstage area. We'll be bringing him on here very, very shortly, and we'll let him tell you all about the incredible work that he does. But, folks, I hope you guys had a great weekend. I really do. My weekend was eventful. Usually I say it's uneventful, but this was an eventful weekend. I got to spend 3 hours on the phone, on a Zoom call with our guest tonight, and had an incredible experience in that Zoom call. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when we bring him on up here. And then, of course, we had our Sunday show. We had our Sunday Bible study show, and I hope you were able to catch that. It was a tough subject that we covered. We were talking about still teaching through the dispensations like we had been for the last 9 weeks on Sunday, and we talked about the kings, and we kind of did it in the same way we did with the judges as well. We kind of did a survey of it, but to be honest with you, each and every king that we could have studied deserves a lesson in and of itself. I mean, that's just how important this type of a study really is. So we might do that one day. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll do a little series on the kings. But really a lot of information, and it's hard to do, really, to be honest with you. It's hard to do a study like that in one day in about an hour. So, but we did. We got through it, and we'll be moving on here next Sunday as well. And looking forward to the week, looking forward to having a nice, quiet week. Today is the only show we're doing this week, and that's mostly because of the way the schedule fell, really. We don't do a show on Tuesday, so obviously we're not going to do a show if there's no show scheduled. And Wednesday is Christmas Eve, and then Thursday is Christmas Day, which we don't do a show anyway. So we really just took off Friday, to be honest. So that's the plan, and then that's the plan we're sticking to anyway for this week. And then Sunday we'll resume with our Bible study show, and then go right back into it next week. We got one show next week on Monday. We got 2 guests lined up for that show, and then radio silence for the rest of the week until the following Sunday. So, but you know what? We need to do this every now and then. It's important for us to kind of recharge batteries a little bit. Have a few changes that we're making to the show, how we're scheduling things. Trying to get ourselves set up for the new year, and I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be exciting, and got something bugging my face over here. It's driving me crazy. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, scratching my mustache all night here, but it's bugging me. So that's what's going on for this week. So make sure that now's a good time for you to get caught up on past shows. So just remember, this is a live show, and we're here weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And since we're not doing shows this week, it's a good time to get caught up. Maybe check out something you missed, or maybe pick up where you left off on one. Maybe you couldn't follow all the way through, whatever it might be. Now's a good time to do that. And also, I'm going to ask you to please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show with your friends, your family, and your followers. That algorithm is really important, believe it or not. When you like and you subscribe and you share the show, it boosts the algorithm, helps the show get found in searches, and so we need to do that. We need to do that. Oh, and by the way, yay, we hit 520 on our followers on Rumble, so we're excited about that. Let's push to let's. Do you think we can get to 530? Do you think we can get to 530 before the end of the year? I would like to think so. So we're going to try. We're going to do the best we can to do that. So hopefully we will. We got a lot of ground to cover, but we're getting there. We're getting there. All right. I don't want to keep our guest waiting for too much longer. So let's get this housekeeping stuff done. All right. So folks, don't forget that this show is brought to you by podhome.fm. Podhome.fm is the most modern and easy to use podcast host platform you're going to find out there today. You can use Podhome to publish your episodes, enhance your audio, automatically generate chapters, titles, transcripts, show notes, cover art, chapter art, you name it, you can do it with Podhome. And you can even podcast live, which is exactly what we're doing. We're doing a live video feed. We're also doing a live audio stream. So, and you could do that very easily through Podhome and across all the modern podcast 2.0 apps that stream live audio. And you can even do it through your website. You can go to Podhome. You can copy their HTML code for this beautiful media player that you can tweak it to make it whatever you want to look like, and just insert that into your website, and boom, you got yourself a media player that is streaming your audio from your show live. So you can very easily do that. That's what I do. If you went to my website right now, you'd have the live audio streaming. You'd be able to listen in. Hey, look, maybe you don't have a website yet. Maybe you're new to podcasting and you haven't gotten to that point yet. You know what? Podhome will give you a website, your very own website. You get everything you need in one affordable subscription of $15.99 a month. Just $15.99 a month. And if you go to Podhome today, podhome.fm today, you try it out for free for 30 days. So 30 days free, then $15.99 a month after that. You can't beat it. So why don't you do that? Head over there, check them out, podhome.fm, podhome.fm. All right. Also, don't forget, check out our friends at Pro HVAC Solutions. Pro HVAC Solutions leverages over 30 years of expertise to provide premier HVAC sales and repair services specializing in both residential and commercial installations. Pro HVAC's team of skilled technicians is dedicated to providing efficient heating, ventilation, and air conditioning solutions for your home or your business. With a focus on quality workmanship and customer satisfaction, Pro HVAC ensures your comfort all year round. Just contact Pro HVAC Solutions today for reliable HVAC services tailored to your specific needs. Just visit prohvacsolutions.com. That's prohvacsolutions.com. I'm going to tell you, they do great work. They when I renovated the house here in the studio, they installed all of my heating and cooling systems here for me, and they did fantastic work, fast, clean, spectacular work. Check them out. prohvacsolutions.com. That's prohvacsolutions.com. All right. Also, don't forget, head over to our website, joerooz.com. And when you get over there, head over to the contact section, open up that little web form, and fire us off a message. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, concerns, any issues that you might have. Maybe you have a complaint. You better not have a complaint, but if you do, you can put it there. And any suggestions. Maybe you have a suggestion for a particular guest you'd like us to try to get, or maybe a topic for a show. Let us know what you think. We really love to hear from you guys. If you don't want to use the web form, totally fine with me. That's why we have an email address also. You can email us at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. Or you can drop a comment down below. We always appreciate those as well. All right. Also, while you're on the website, if you would, please check out the support button on our homepage. And remember that this is a value for value show. And all that simply means is that if you are receiving anything of value from the content we're putting out, we're asking you to return that value to us in the form of a donation. And that could be your time, your talent, your treasure. If the content we're putting out is only worth $1 to you, okay, great. Throw $1 at us. We love it. We'd appreciate it. All right. And of course, what we'll do is we'll lay out the different ways that you can help us, the different tiers of support that we have at the end of the show. This way we don't waste too much time in taking away from our guest. Now, with all of that said, our guest tonight is Craig Meriwether. Craig is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, medical hypnosis specialist. Let me fix this really quickly. There you go. A medical hypnosis specialist and the founder of Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. For over a decade, he's worked with trauma, PTSD, chronic pain, and depression. But he's also known for something a little bit more controversial than all that. He's also known for past life regression and spiritual hypnotherapy. And today we're going to get to know what exactly that is and what's psychological, what's spiritual, and whether any of it actually works. Craig, welcome to the show, my friend.
Joe, thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We got a bunch of time to talk, so we're going to go down a bunch of rabbit holes tonight. So
yes, we do, sir. Yes, we do. Now, you and I got to spend 3 hours together on Saturday, and we did a past life regression on me. That is personal information. We're not going to discuss details of that. I wouldn't expect anybody to discuss the details of that.
Yeah.
But what I do want to say, though, is it was an incredibly enlightening experience. You and I spoke prior to that, just a few weeks before, and we were kind of going over a few things. And I had told you one of the things that I was extremely fascinated with and had an obsession with was the enlightenment period. And I'll be very honest, when I went into this, I was expecting to have something to that effect, which I did not, which I guess is a good thing in a way, because then it's demonstrating that I didn't fabricate that whole thing and put myself in that situation. And when I say fabricate, I don't mean it in a negative context. You and I have spoken about it, and you have told me that a lot of times, somebody studies these things so in so much detail and has such a love for the period or whatever it might be, that in their subconscious it can come forward.
Yeah. And there's a very deep rabbit hole just to even start off with. In and of itself, it's kind of the chicken and egg situation of, let's say somebody is very much into the Civil War. They're interested in the 1860s. They're interested in Abraham Lincoln. They read all the books. They watch the Ken Burns documentary twice a year. They have a uniform. They go to Gettysburg and do the reenactment. They have their wooden musket, their rubber bayonet, and they run around and they are on panels and they go to discussions. And then maybe they read a book. Maybe they read Brian Weiss, Many Lives, right, Many Masters, or they read Michael Newton, Journey of Souls, or something. And you think, oh, this might be a fun thing to do. This sounds interesting. Let's discover a little bit. Let's have some fun. And then they go to a past life that is in the Civil War. And it's a little disappointing, maybe a little frustrating. It's like, well, of course, I went to a past life in the Civil War. I'm so interested in it. But again, it's a chicken and egg. Is that person so interested in the Civil War because they lived in the Civil War and there's some resolution that needs to happen from there? Or is it the subconscious mind is using the Civil War as a construct to find healing and resolution in this life? And so that's why when I do this work and I work with people, the important thing is the healing. Now, we'll spend the next couple hours. I'll talk till midnight. And it's fun. It's extraordinary to talk about consciousness and healing and time and the pineal gland and remote viewing research done by the government in the 1970s proving that consciousness is non-local. We can get all into that. And so I don't think, in terms of the research I've done, in terms of even the book I've written, the Past Lives Guidebook, which focuses on the science and the research, because I was fascinated by that. I was interested in that. And I wanted to see for myself. I don't think there's any doubt. Just the government research alone in remote viewing, I don't think there's any doubt, because they are not only moving consciousness across location, across the earth, they're moving forwards and backwards in time. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think there's any doubt about it. According to the research, decades of research, almost 60 years of research the Michael Newton Institute has been doing, let alone Michael Newton himself during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that we return again and again as a sort of learning, like the Earth school, to learn and grow as souls. Again, another deep rabbit hole. So in and of itself, I don't think there's any doubt. Once you stack the research and the theories behind computer simulation or the holographic universe or the multiverse. You start stacking all the evidence one after the other. So in and of itself, I'm 99.997% sure that there are past lives, and we return again and again for our own learning and growth and healing as souls, as spiritual entities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that experience that person had was a quote unquote real past life, or again, a construct of the subconscious mind for healing, I couldn't prove one way or another unless they're getting such detailed information that only, a PhD would have in terms of the Civil War history or archaeology or wherever the person goes. So in and of itself, the focus in terms of the work I do with people is the healing or the discoveries and the insights the person is looking for to, understand more about their purpose and their mission and what they should be moving towards in this life. Now, it can be done for fun. It can, certainly. And just like, your ancestry, sending your DNA to the websites and the labs to kind of discover more about your heritage, your ancestry, where your people have come from,
Mm-hmm.
and doing more about the genealogy work. That's fascinating and that's interesting. But it also comes with a price in that what if you find out your ancestors weren't the greatest of people, the nicest of people?
Right.
In fact, maybe they're quite traumatizing to groups of people. And so what do you do with that information? What started off as a fun little interest to find out more about your own family's history turns out that, maybe your family, even recent family of great grandfathers and grandmothers, weren't the nicest of people.
Right.
What do you do with that information? That's where maybe working with somebody can be helpful. Certainly you can do this work on your own. There's lots of recordings on YouTube, and I'm guessing Spotify. You can work with Brian Weiss. There's recordings of him on YouTube. You can do a past life regression. It's more general, of course. And what you experienced was something very, very specific. But at the end of the day, even though, it's like the William James quote, one of the pioneers of modern American psychotherapy, it's like, to prove that all crows are not black, you only need one white crow. And I think we have hundreds, if not thousands, of white crows at this point, proving that this issue of our spirituality is accurate and real. Maybe we don't have the entirety of the puzzle, but we have a good picture of it. In and of itself, that the experience a person is having, I don't know that I could ever prove one way or other that's quote unquote real, other than how do you live life once you've experienced that afterwards? Did you grow? Did you learn? Did you discover something about yourself? Did you even resolve some issues or create healing? And so that's the focus of it. And it can be, as you experience, it can be quite enlightening, if not even healing.
It absolutely. So when I walked away from our session, there was as the day progressed, I kind of mulled over everything that took place, and from what I can remember, I didn't really remember too much in great detail. It started coming back little by little, as the day was going on, and there were definitely a few things that I picked up from that I need to address on my end. And I saw a pattern in what we experienced on Saturday with stuff that goes on in my current life. It's interesting that came out that way, and it is definitely something I need to work on, and I'm going to be doing that. And really quickly, I want to give a quick shout out to New York City Maddie joining us over on Instagram. The reason why I want to call out New York City Maddie on Instagram is because that's my son. He's watching the show today, so that's great. I love it. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well,
in terms of your experience, also, this isn't something where I'm a hypnotherapist, and I know all the baggage that comes with the word hypnosis and being a hypnotherapist. And this isn't something where I'm swinging a pocket watch and telling somebody to go to sleep. You're going to be fully aware of the experience. In fact, we're going to be having a conversation during it. That's for the recording. Because if we're doing a longer session, like maybe a 3.5 hour session, that seems like a really long time, but it seems like 10 minutes. because you're having such an experience, you're having such an extraordinary experience. So time kind of dilutes, and you're just like, wow, that seemed like 10, 20 minutes. And we've been doing it for 3.5 hours.
Which it did.
Yeah.
We connected at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we wrapped up at 1 o'clock. So, yeah,
but it's also like watching a 3-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go to the theater, you're watching it at home, you know, Scorsese movie or Marvel movie or something, and one of these 3.5 hour deals. And, you know, you watch the movie, you experience the movie, you're consciously aware of the movie. And yet maybe a day later, a week later, somebody says, hey, remember that scene where they, you know, did this, that, and the other thing? You're like, no, wait, what? But you watch the movie. It's just so much information. You're processing so much information through this 3-hour experience. And so that's where the recording comes in.
Right.
And, so, you know, we record over Zoom. We do a lot of this stuff over Zoom. And what's extraordinary about that is that it works just as well as maybe doing it in person. It's fun to do it in person. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's a beautiful place to come and hang out. We're in the mountains here. It's been snowing. It's probably snow on Friday or Saturday. And it's an extraordinary, beautiful place to be. We're sort of about an hour and a half away from the Grand Canyon, about 40 minutes away from Sedona, Arizona. And it's a beautiful place to be. But this has allowed me the Zoom and doing these virtual sessions has allowed me to work with people around the country and around the world, because people feel relaxed and comfortable in their homes. And in and of itself, this isn't a massage. I'm not, you know, this isn't, you know, surgery.
Right.
I don't need to be hands-on with you. We're communicating. Now, it's great to see you. I want to make sure your ecology is okay. You're doing well. If it gets intense or there's some situation that needs, you know, maybe turning down the volume on in terms of the intensity of it, I can help with that. But we're having this conversation, even though you're in a, you know, kind of an altered state of consciousness, let's say a trancey state, a meditative-like state, this daydreamy state of the alpha brainwave state, we're able to talk with each other, and you can narrate your experience, and at least partially. I'm guessing just through my own experiences and just the way people describe their experiences that we're going through, I'm guessing people are only narrating 10, 20% of what they're actually experiencing. You've had that experience.
Yes.
Just recently, so you know what I mean. And, you know, you said, well, I'm in a room and there seems to be a couch. And, well, you're not describing the color of the couch, the pattern of the fabric, the wallpaper, the paint, the carpet, the tile. You know, you're just experiencing, say, a room. Well, you're experiencing the totality of that. And whether it's more of a sensation, if it's more of a visual, you know, we have the 5 senses. And just like back in school, some people are more visual learners, some people more auditory learners, some people more kinesthetic learners. We can experience this in different ways, but you are fully aware of your experience and we're discussing it. And again, partially for the recording, so you can listen to it again or read the transcript of it, which is a little bit easier to deal with than a 3-hour recording. But it's also to help me check in on you and you know, if you get stuck, I don't know, the door won't open. Well, let's find a way around the door, or over the door, or through the door, or, you know, we move up, and this is, again, another deep rabbit hole. Once you pass in that life, the soul moves out of the body. We move up to that soul world that Michael Newton talks about in Life Between Lives and Destiny, Life Between Lives, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. He calls it Life Between Lives, that soul state. And it feels lovely in the soul state. And it's like just sitting in a warm, hot jacuzzi. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't want to get out of the jacuzzi. It's like, well, yes, but we have work to do. We have places to go and information to discover. So it's nice to have a guide to help usher along the experience.
Yeah, it in my experience, it was there were I remember, and when I read through the transcript, I remembered some of the stuff that was going on visually in my mind, and one of the recurring things that I noticed is that I kept on talking about going home.
Yeah.
You know, and which I found really interesting, because, you know, I'm technically very far away from my home. You know, my home is New York, my home is Brooklyn, my home is, you know, back that way. And this life, I feel like I'm very far away from my home. And in the experience that I had with you, some of the things that I saw and some of the things that I experienced Um, some were unsettling. Um, there were a few points there where I remember telling you that I was very confused, and I saw it in the transcript. I mentioned that I was confused, and I was someplace where I didn't want to be, and I again just kept on thinking about going home, just wanting to be home, being with my family, and that's something that I kind of feel even to this point. There are days where I just want to be with my family. I want to be with my kids, my son, my daughter. I'm not just saying that because he's here watching, but and I think I told you that on Saturday. That's very important to me, and I think that obviously was part of my previous, and it is as much as it is now, maybe even more.
And maybe be a theme not only just of this life you're living here in the 2000s, that past life you experienced, but maybe other past lives.
Right.
It's not like going to school. You just don't go to the first grade and learn math and 2 + 2 = 4, and that's it. No, you keep building upon that. And then you learn about the times tables and long division and fractions. And then the 6th grade, you learn about, I don't know, whatever you're learning about in 6th grade. Then you're in high school and you're learning about algebra 2, calculus, trigonometry. And then you're getting your master's degree in mathematics and writing those crazy equations on the chalkboard. You don't start with the crazy equations. You start with 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And there may be situations during those years of learning. And let's look at every grade and bachelor's and master's degrees every year as a life. Well, it may take multiple lives, 12, 13, 14 lives to really comprehend love, compassion, empathy, home, family. And there may be the need to experience that from different perspectives. And so a broad example would be wealth and abundance. Would it be helpful to really understand wealth and abundance to live life through a life of being poor and in poverty, or living paycheck to paycheck? Would that be helpful in learning about wealth and abundance?
Right.
And so just like mathematics, it's not just addition and subtraction, but also multiplication and division and trigonometry. And there's different aspects to mathematics. Are there different aspects to wealth and abundance that may take multiple grades, multiple lives? And just like school, you don't do well, you're going to summer school, friend, or you need a tutor after school, or you need a study group, or you're taking the chemistry class at university. You're taking it over again. If you're getting a D-, if you're getting an F, that's not, you gotta understand the subject if you want to proceed and grow in whatever subject you're there to learn about. And if you need that chemistry class to proceed, well, you're taking it over again. And so it's not just, everything works out for the best at the end as you take the last breath. Maybe it didn't. And so, but it's like anything, like any sort of research or experiment. It's like you just go, well, okay, we don't do it that way, I guess. Let's try it another way. It's not a failure if you don't get up. You just try it again. Well, let's try it again.
And sometimes, and like you said, sometimes it takes multiple opportunities at it, or multiple lives lived through in order to figure out, or at least to correct something that needs to be corrected. I don't know if I'm phrasing it right, but it may. You only fail if you don't get up again. You only fail the chemistry class if you don't take it again. Okay, so it took you. I mean, and maybe you need a different teacher. Maybe you need a different school. Maybe there's a different way you need to learn the subject, and that teacher was teaching a more visual style, and you need a more auditory style. I see.
Just again, this is the extraordinariness of this conversation. You probably end up with more questions than answers, but
I have a ton of, believe me. And after reading the transcript and looking at some of the video, I have a ton of questions but they're questions that you can't answer. It's something that I have to answer. Right. Yeah. So 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 if somebody comes to you and they go through like I did, and you go through a regression, and they have all this stuff, you're not there to give them the answers. You're just there to point them in the direction to go.
Yeah, I want to make it perfectly clear. I have no answers. I got my own life that I'm trying to learn and grow in. So don't look to me to any answers. And that's why I wrote the book, Past Lives Guidebook. It's just because of my own skepticism and my own interest and wanting to understand and wanting to learn this stuff. I've always been somewhat of a spiritual person, even as a little kid, growing up in the Episcopal church. And then I went to a Baptist school. So I was, afternoons and weekends, because the church was close to my house, I got Episcopal church stuff going on, which I like. I like the Episcopal church. I like the robes and the candles and the Catholicism light and the Eucharist. I like the ritual stuff of it. Mm-hmm. That it's very tactile and very, and there's much meaning to it. As I now look back, maybe I didn't understand that at 7, 8 years old, but looking back, I get more of it. But then from 6th grade to 12th grade, I went to a Baptist run school. So Monday through Friday, I got Baptist indoctrination and Bible class. And then my friends live in the neighborhood and they go to the church. And we're doing church stuff on Sundays, of course, and youth group and things like that. So my whole growing up, I don't want to say indoctrination, but the bread and the bone is very much was a religious experience.
Yes.
And so as one does in a religious environment, you can have mountaintop experiences, at least what they called it when I was going to school. And you have these heart-opening, soul-opening moments. And I would try to find more of those moments. And that led me kind of deeper into exploring religion, even the charismatic movement. And I'm talking high school.
Right.
And it was hard to recreate. And so as I move on in life, I get into my 20s, I go to UC Santa Cruz. And that's the, cliched melting pot of just people from around the world, because Silicon Valley is right there, and Cupertino and Mountain View, and San Francisco is right there. And there's festivals all the time and music. And as you learn about other people's, cultures and ancestry, you learn about the philosophies and also their spirituality. You take a class in Zen meditation, you can take an African dance class, you can learn about the music, eat the food. And as you discover more and just become friends, you learn more about how they grew up. And that slowly started, opening up my worldview, started dripping it. And part of discovering more about the world in the 1990s is pre-internet. And so it's really about the music. Peter Gabriel started doing some, more world music on the So, not just So album, but, in the 80s. David Byrne with the Brazilian thing, Paul Simon with Graceland and Rhythm of the Saints. And so the world started opening up to me through music, through just meeting other people and understanding that there's, philosophies and spirituality in the world that believe in reincarnation.
Right.
And not just like that's bred in their bone. They just, of course, that's what happens. And investigating that, because I love reading about that kind of stuff. Growing up in the 70s, whatever book paperback book I could find about Bigfoot or UFOs or whatever. Favorite show was Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Why can't they find Noah's Ark on over there in Turkey? Because Soviet Union has it blocked. It's like all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
and that curiosity about maybe things otherworldly or unique and different than what they're teaching in school led to, okay, what about reincarnation? What about past lives? And as more and more information came out in terms of, especially around the popularity of Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, which was 1988, and then Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls in 1992, and Brian Weiss is on the Oprah show, and being interviewed by big time media outlets like 60 Minutes or whatever. And it's becoming more and more accepted because these aren't woo-woo people. They're not wearing the weird hats and the robes and the things.
Yeah.
Brian Weiss, well, he's still alive today. I just did a workshop with him last summer. 82 years old, and he's still doing this work. But he is a left brain analytical academic. That's his words. He's got a chemistry degree from Columbia. He has a medical degree from Yale. He turned to psychiatry and became head of psychiatry at Mount Sinai in Miami. He's writing papers and writing chapters in medical books and writing journal articles about Alzheimer's and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And he's working with a patient struggling with deep anxiety and panic for a year. With all he knows about the mind and consciousness and healing and psychiatry, he's working with this woman for a year and can't help, can't find a way. And so thinking that, maybe moving back to childhood to relieve this anxiety and this fear would be a great way. So they do a regression technique back to childhood. Well, she keeps going. She goes past childhood. She goes past being a newborn. She goes past being in utero. She goes to a past life. Now, his first thoughts around this is that it is a construct of the subconscious mind. Wanting to find a way to create that healing, the subconscious mind created a metaphoric healing, a symbolic healing by moving back to Egypt. That's what his first impressions were, because she created some healing. Well, you want to create healing? Okay. If you want to use metaphor, subconscious mind, that's what we'll use. I mean, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Milton Erickson, they all say the subconscious mind speaks in symbolism, metaphor, and allegory and storytelling. Okay. And you can speak back to it. That's why a lot of those guided visualizations work so well. Well, let's do some more past life regression. And so they did a few more sessions around this past life she experienced, and she healed it all. The anxiety she had been struggling with for years and years, that Dr. Brian Weiss, with his MD from Yale, spent a year trying to find a way to resolve for her, to help her, couldn't find a way, healed it all with just a few past life regression sessions. And he came to the conclusion, because of the deep emotional healing she did, that this has to be a real experience. Mm-hmm. His understanding of mind, of consciousness, of healing is that you can't do that type of deep emotional healing unless you're healing from a real event. Plus, she started getting, from the other side, however you want to speak about it, she started getting detailed private information about Brian Weiss's life. This is 1980. There's no internet. There's no cell phones. There's no texting. Even if she was stalking him, there's no way she could get this private information about deaths in the family, including a child of his who died really young, about a year old. There's no obituary. Only a few family members, and of course the hospital knew about it. And she gave detailed information about it. And he finally had to come to the conclusion, sort of like the Sherlock Holmes things, when you eliminate the impossible, whatever's left over, however improbable, is the answer. And he finally had to come to the conclusion, due to her deep healing work. Plus, she was getting verifiable, detailed information about Egypt that only certain PhDs, Egyptologists, and archaeologists should know. You know, the kind of stuff that's verifiable, but only after hard research. Again, no internet. And this isn't the kind of information that gets published in People magazine and you see on the Love Boat at the time. You know, it's like you had to go look for this information. And so she was getting detailed information about Egypt. She healed deep emotional hurt and pain, mm-hmm. and was coming up with private information about Brian Weiss. And finally, he had this left brain intellectual academic had to come up to the conclusion that the only way this is possible is that she is experiencing a real past life. Wrote his book in 1988, Many Lives, Many Masters, and just kind of started the more modern day past life regression movement here, at least in the United States, and it's been happening elsewhere, because other cultures, of course we have past lives. Of course we reincarnate. But that was relatively unknown other than in some spiritual circles and New Age circles. Certainly Dolores Cannon and other people. Shirley MacLaine was coming out in the late 80s with some of
I
her.
remember that. Yeah.
But it was very, very new on a more academic level. Dolores Cannon and Shirley MacLaine are kind of lean more towards that woo-woo side of this equation. And so to have people like Brian Weiss and Michael Newton and others come at it from a more academic side of it, I think reached a lot of people who were curious but just didn't resonate with the, I keep saying woo-woo, and I know that's kind of derogatory, but I live near Sedona, so I think I'm allowed to say that.
You're okay. You're good here. We don't censor here. You're good. Before you go on though, I did want to ask you though. Now you didn't start off doing past life regression, right? So how did you end up doing past life regressions? And before you answer the question, for the folks that are jumping in on Instagram, I just want to let you know in about 15 minutes, Instagram shuts off the feed. So if you're watching on Instagram and you want to continue watching, come over to rumble.com/Joe Rooz and pick it up there. So.
So my story kind of focuses on, in terms of moving into becoming a hypnotherapist and then the more spiritual side of things, kind of merges two aspects of my life. One, the more spiritual side, again, I talked about before, about growing up in the Episcopal Church and the Baptist Church and seeking out those mountaintop experiences.
Right.
That I found in spirituality, also kind of the widening of my worldview and learning more about other people's spiritual theories and philosophies. There's that aspect of my life, but then there's also the depression and anxiety I was struggling with. And as a teenager during the 80s, again, no internet, those Prozac and things like that, those don't come out till the late 90s, those SSRI drugs. So really, it's whatever talk therapist you could find in the yellow pages. Certainly as a 14-year-old, you're not going to ask your friends at lunch, if they had any talk therapist recommendations, what
right, yeah,
list are you going to? Or whatever book you could find at the library or the bookstore. And certainly, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, is not going to look through the yellow pages, not going to go to the library and start looking at books. And so it's just something I struggle with, something I just kind of leaned into, just assumed this is the way it is. This is the way everybody feels. In the 90s, getting older, getting in my 20s, I focused on the personal growth aspect of it. Tony Robbins and whoever else was out there, devouring anything I could just so I could feel better. Still struggling to find those spiritual experiences through different means. Now music, now other learning about other people's spiritual beliefs. All just so I could feel not only the mountaintop experience, but relieve that heaviness of the depression and anxiety. One good thing that came out, a lot of good things, and it's helped people, certainly. But those SSRI drugs, what it did was open up the conversation. So now Oprah was talking about it, Phil Donahue was talking about it, Merv Griffin was talking about it. They're having segments on 60 Minutes and wherever. It opened up a conversation that was hidden. Mm-hmm. And now you could go to your doctor and say, yeah, I'm feeling depressed. Now they're going to write you a prescription with their 10-minute little, consult that you have with them. But it allowed the conversation to happen as the internet is coming out. Now we're all on our 14.4 modems and looking at getting our little AOL discs to put in our computers to download the internet, taking 12 hours to download a picture and all that. But you had forums, you had real people talking about their experiences. Mm-hmm. And again, opening up the conversation. And as I'm learning more about depression, as I'm learning more about personal growth, as I'm learning more about other people's spirituality, I come to find I want to change from this anxiety depression to a more stable Craig Meriwether. And a lot of this happened because my wife, my girlfriend I met at 19, we got married in 92 and our son was born in 2000. And you get the word that you're going to be a father. It's like, well, I got to get get my life together.
Yeah.
If not for me, at least I need to do it for my son, because my mother struggled with depression. I struggled with depression. What are the chances my son's going to struggle with depression and anxiety? If it's nature or nurture, and probably both. And so I need to get it together. And so I really started focusing in one of the things that kept coming up in books and, forums on the internet and articles was hypnotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like the 5 things you can do to change your life. And one of them was always hypnotherapy, using your own subconscious mind to create the healing it knows you need to create. Because the subconscious mind, it knows where the cut on your finger is. It knows there's a scrape on your knee. If somebody breaks their leg skiing,
Mm-hmm.
it knows there's a break. It doesn't start healing the right leg if the cast is on the left leg. If you have a cut on the index finger of your left hand, it doesn't send all the white blood cells to the pinky finger of your right hand. It knows what the problem is. It knows what to do about it. If you ever had that experience of like somebody point, wow, that's a big scrape on your arm. How'd you get that? You're like, I don't know. What is that? It was like, it knew there was a scrape on your, you didn't even have to be consciously aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the subconscious mind is extraordinarily powerful, and it may be holding on to hurt and pain and trauma and fear as a form of protection to armor yourself. Well, one great way amongst many, but one extraordinary way of creating healing are the techniques and tools found amongst the umbrella of hypnotherapy, because you're using your own healing power to resolve issues. So I started using that, and I found somebody to work with, and I created healing. But there's another aspect of this work that I found out about, is that there's a spiritual component to it as well.
Mm.
So not only can you access parts of yourself that may be behind the veil of the unconscious mind, there's also aspects of accessing super conscious level of mind, is one term, your higher self, or these other forms of consciousness, I guess, to find healing or to discover aspects of yourself, or to even remember past lives. Because when you're doing a past life regression, it's not like you're time traveling. It's just
Right.
a memory. Just like if I was to ask somebody, hey, tell me about that meeting at work last month, or tell me about, you had lunch with your friend at that new restaurant. Tell me about the restaurant. Or, hey, high school, what was going on in high school? Where did you go? What was your favorite class? Who was your favorite teacher? Did you go to prom? What did you wear? Who did you go with? Did you get a limo? Did you play sports? Did you play music? Did you play, did you go to theater? Did you smoke cigarettes behind the gym? It's not that you're like doing a, Back to the Future. You're going back in time and being there and maybe getting stuck there. No, you're just having a memory, just like you're remembering high school. Just like I asked somebody to, remember their earliest memory. They may say, well, when I was 5 years, excuse me, sorry. I was 5 years old. I was 2 years old. All we're doing is going a bit further, So we're swimming around in the shallow end of the pool. We're thinking about last month. We're thinking about a couple of years ago on that vacation. We're thinking about high school. All we're doing is going over to the deep end of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
The hypnotherapy, there's certain aspects and techniques help you do that. And so that intrigued me. And so I ended up finding a school. Excuse me, hold on. Sorry.
Sorry. We all go through it, my friend.
Scratchy throat. So sorry. But one aspect of this work, of course, is the deep healing work you can do in this life. The other, maybe even deeper aspect, is the more spiritual side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that hypnotherapy is doing it or allowing you to access. You're just using it as a tool to access these parts of you that are already there. It's just you're using these more meditative states of body and mind to access these parts of your consciousness or super conscious level minds or your spirituality. And so I went to a school, the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. Great school, been around about 40 years. But the reason I went, because of the intensive training, was 500 hours. And so the first 300 hours is just clinical hypnotherapy, learning about, dealing with somebody who's struggling with trauma or fear or wanting to build confidence. So that's 6 weeks right there, because it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Real school you go to, and have to rent a little apartment, and you go to the school, and then you're just work on the weekends and study groups and all that. And then that's the first 3 modules. The 4th module is medical hypnosis, learn about pain control and healing acceleration and boosting immune system. The 5th module is the spiritual module. And if this interests you, they just keep going deeper. You've already learned about healing and about transformation and creating positive change. Well, now apply that in a more spiritual setting, including past life regression, including natal regression, which is pretty extraordinary. That soul life, that life between lives, that Michael Newton worked with.
When you say natal,
all these things together in my life.
When you say natal, you're talking about in the womb?
Yeah. Welcome to another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Here's an aspect of yourself. And this, you start off your show, we talk about controversial things. And so it's this idea of, when does the soul enter the body? Consciousness, things like this. Well, there's an aspect of growing in a mother's womb that may cause hurt and pain, because you are feeding off of mom's hormones. So if mom is in fear, if mom is dealing with some anxiety, stress, anger, resentment that she got pregnant, fear that she doesn't have enough money, fear that she's now a single mom, dad ran or dad passed or what have you. The hormones of fear, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the neuropeptides, those molecules that send the signal of emotion to the body, literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, molecules of anger, molecules of hate, molecules of joy, molecules of love, those get dumped into the bloodstream. Well, mom's bloodstream is feeding into the baby. And so as the baby grows and mom is continuously afraid, angry, resentful at the baby, because now her life is different and changed. I'm not saying that, and I don't mean to make moms feel guilty for the experience they had over those 9 months. Certainly, if somebody's afraid or gets anxious, or that's just being a human. I'm talking about the extreme situations where somebody is maybe really afraid because of abuse, an abusive relationship, a traumatic issue that's going on. The father is a soldier over in Afghanistan and not coming back. But, those issues of chronic resentment, anger, fear, that's the baby is feeding on that. And so there's these other aspects of consciousness being non-local. Again, that we can go back to the remote viewing experiments by the government. If consciousness is non-local and you can tap into other aspects, is it possible to really understand what mom is going through and why, even on a more spiritual level? And so there's also aspects of a difficult birth. Run into people and lots of anecdotal evidence as well as some research, like if the cord is wrapped around the baby's neck as birth is happening, and now at 30 years old at work, whenever they're about to finish a big project, they start to choke, metaphorically.
Right.
Or they can never finish a project, and they never follow through on anything, and find out that their mom had to have a C-section. And it's not only can be a physical issue, but also this more metaphoric allegory of whenever they're about to finish something, when they're about to complete a project, they choke.
Right. Wow.
And so the aspect of natal regression is that, if you can go back to, some people can have memories of being, a year old, 2 years old. If you can go back to past life, if you can go to soul world, that life between lives that Michael Newton talks about in Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls and other people, why wouldn't you be able to go to the natal side of this and find resolution and healing around maybe an experience of being in utero because mom was going through a traumatic experience, or mom was resentful that she got pregnant, or whatever the situation may be. And does that affect you in any way, shape, or form? Not only the more emotional component of it, but maybe on a physical component, because you were fed on a steady diet of, fear and anxiety.
Negativity, negative emotions.
Yeah. So, that's a quick 3-minute little thing about it, but it's quite powerful. If we have the ability to experience soul world, if we have the ability to experience a past life, we have ability to experience maybe being 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. Well, the only thing left would be in utero. And why wouldn't we be able to experience that?
Right. Was there ever a point where you thought that, this is way too far out there. I really should stop doing this?
Never really that aspect of it. I need to stop doing this. This has been a slow drip.
Okay.
I just turned 58. I was trying to figure out the spiritual thing when I was a teenager with the Episcopal Church, the Baptist Church, the Charismatic movement, hearing world music by Peter Gabriel and Paul Simon, which helped open up my worldview, which then going to Santa Cruz, back in the 90s and earlier than that, of course, the downtown Santa Cruz had like 7, 8, 9 bookstores, all focused on different things. There's Logos, if people are wherever in Santa Cruz. It's closed at this point, but Logos, this great, was it 2-story, 3-story used bookstore? The extraordinary used spiritual religious section, Gateways, if people remember back in the day, Gateways, this great spiritual bookstore. But I could only handle like one shelf of the spiritual bookstore, because this stuff over here about angels or Atlantis or communicating with other beings, I rolled my eyes. It's ridiculous, because I didn't understand. It didn't fit my worldview. It didn't fit how I grew up, let alone reincarnation. That most of the world has some sort of life after death philosophy, theories, and spirituality. Just because I grew up in the Episcopal Church in San Diego, California, I didn't understand that. That doesn't mean I'm right.
All right.
Thousands and thousands of years of different cultures around the world have some sort of theory about I start but there's a section in my book, Past Lives Guidebook, where I go through kind of a somewhat of a history of past life regression and reincarnation. We start with Neanderthal burial sites 50,000 years ago. Is there any evidence that Neanderthals, when they buried their members of their community, their family, that they understood something about life after death? And there seems to be. So this all started maybe 50,000 years ago.
Wow.
And just because I didn't get it, I wasn't brought up with those traditions. But I slowly learned and learned about it, and it became more comfortable with it. And so the bookstore widened to me. And even, there's still maybe probably sections where I just like, okay, well, I don't know about that. But it certainly was a slow drip, and I'm still learning, still growing. Half the reason I wrote the book is just to learn more for myself. My own skepticism about this. I'm more of an X-Files kind of guy. I want to believe.
Yeah.
I really hope Bigfoot's out there. I don't necessarily think there's enough evidence. I really hope Noah's Ark is out there. I don't kind of think so, but it's fun to hope that there's a Bigfoot and that cool gray aliens are going to arrive next year, and we'll, I know it's a new Steven Spielberg movie. This will date this conversation. New Steven Spielberg movie is called Disclosure. So I think they're really kind of hopefully opening up that discussion a bit more.
Somewhere along
comfortable with it. But it's been a slow learning for me. I mean, I'm getting my PhD in being Craig Meriwether, and it's taken a while. And all this, if you told me back in the 1990s that, oh yeah, you can totally heal from the pain you experienced as being in utero, the emotional pain.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, okay, well, I don't know. But now I've worked with people with it, and it's quite extraordinary. And so it's been a slow drip until, and there's still more to learn, I think.
So a past life experience, or past lives, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So literal, psychological, or an element of both?
That I think it could be both. Maybe even an experience can include elements of both, because to me, my understanding of it, and I'm not going to use these terms accurately. I'm just using it to present this idea. So save your comments. I know I'm not using them right, but it's that aspect of,
He knows me well already.
This 5D universe of everything, this digital 5D information. We're accessing this fire hose of information through this funnel and trying to analyze and translate with this 3D analog brain.
Right.
And so I believe, just through my own research and working with people, as well as, again, to prove all black crows, to prove that all crows are not black, you only need one right crow. And I think the evidence, even just over the last 60 years, from Michael Newton and Brian Weiss and all the others, Ian Stevenson, that let alone the remote viewing research, that consciousness is non-local,
mm-hmm.
meaning it's not held within the prison of this skull of ours, and people can experience other location. I mean, that's been proven by the U.S. government trying to get ahead of the Soviet Union and psychic warfare, to militarize this, to weaponize ESP and psychic ability and remote viewing, and the experiments they've run, and the books that are out there about this because of the Freedom of Information Act. And it got so many people made fun of it and doubted it, that the people in the experiment started writing their own books about it. But let alone the government research that has been released, and being able to see not only across space, the other side of the world, but into the future and into the past. And so I again, and even the stuff I put in my own book is like 99.997% sure that we as souls and consciousness, and however that works, experience multiple lives as a learning, as a growth, as a development as souls. But the experience somebody's having, I don't know, again, whether that is a metaphoric healing, mm-hmm. like Brian Weiss thought in Many Lives, Many Masters, the person he was working with, I think her name was Kathleen, if I remember the book. Well, it's been a while since I read it. That her healing with the past life was more metaphoric, more of an allegory, more of a symbolic healing. The subconscious mind was creating for her ability to finally release that anxiety, finally heal the fear and the trauma. Well, eventually he had to come to the conclusion, because of the deep, deep healing she was recovering from, that it had to be a real experience. Now, we know this, the subconscious mind speaks to us in symbolism and metaphor and allegory and in storytelling. So again, somebody's experience in and of itself, I don't think, unless they're getting extraordinarily detailed information that's not on the internet, and you could prove that, like they bring up information that's never been known before, and archaeologists and historians can prove it. I don't know how you'd really be able to prove one way or another whether their past life is quote unquote real or not. So again, it goes back to the healing. It goes back to, what can you discover about yourself to help you in this life move forward?
Okay.
So whether that experience, what you had or the other people I've worked with and other people have had, they're listening to a recording on YouTube or something, again, it's about what you can discover about yourself and move forward. And, whether it's a quote unquote real experience or a creation of the subconscious mind for that healing, I couldn't tell you one way or the other than I believe past lives are real due to the extraordinary amount of evidence out there.
All right, now on Saturday when we had our session together, like I know that from my experience, I wasn't asleep.
Right.
I wasn't unaware of my surroundings. I knew where I was. I knew where I was sitting.
Yeah.
How does the subconscious function and bring forward all of those memories that I experienced, but still at the same time understand that I was local, I was in my house, in my studio? Yeah. How does that work?
It's not unlike, if we're hanging out and, you're on your couch and we're chit-chatting and I'm like, hey, just close your eyes for a minute. Tell me about your most favorite class in high school. And tell me about the room. Mm-hmm. And tell me about the other kids in the class. Who was your best friend in high school? Do you still know them? Who are you dating? Where did you play in a band? You're on the football team? Tell me about high school. And again, it's not that you're going back to high school, but you're also not in this conscious awareness of the present moment. Doesn't mean you're not aware that you're sitting on a couch. Now, some people may go deep enough that maybe they think that they're kind of in a floaty, drifty consciousness of soul, but it's really brainwave state.
Right.
And the famous ones we learned about in school, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. I know there's others and there's subsections and there's gamma and all this stuff, but just the kind of 4 famous ones we learned about back in school. It's really just how fast your brain is operating. And again, I'm being very basic in the couple minutes to talk about it. But, if you see the videos on YouTube of the lightning storm in the brain when you think a thought or feel an emotion or perform an action or something, it's a lightning storm of electricity, of neurons firing their little electrical pulses to each other. How fast that electrical storm happens depends on what brainwave state you're in. And like right now, you and I, Joe, we're in the beta brainwave state. We're firing about 18, 20 cycles per second. We're in this conscious awareness of having this conversation, being in the present moment together.
Right. Okay.
Well, let's say you're at a meeting at work and maybe it doesn't really pertain to you, what they're talking about in the moment, and your mind drifts off. Or maybe it's just a boring meeting and your mind drifts off. Well, you've just altered your state of consciousness, not through ayahuasca, not through LSD, not through marijuana, not through a beer. You've altered your state of consciousness by being bored. Mm-hmm. And your mind drifts off. You think, oh, I got a weekend coming up. I got people coming over. Oh, boy, I really need to get shopping done. And you start thinking about something else. Or you start thinking about the vacation you took a year ago or something.
Would that be considered daydreaming?
Yeah, it's just a daydream.
People go through that regularly. I mean, that's a normal thing.
Every day, multiple times a day. This is a natural process. And that's the extraordinariness of hypnotherapy in of itself. Forget the spiritual aspect of it. Hypnotherapy is not anything magical or mystical. We're just doing what you're already doing and drifting off into a daydreaming state. The whole point of meditation, like Zen meditation or transcendental meditation, TM, where you're doing the mantras, is to keep your attention and your awareness in this present moment. Why? Because it's so hard. Mm-hmm. We drift off all the time. Back in high school math class, and you're taking notes because it's going to be on the final. You need to do really well on the final. And you're watching the board and you're trying to figure out these equations. It's so boring. And you just kind of start staring out the window. And I think, oh, finally summer vacation's coming up. Or, this weekend we're going to go to the concert. Or you start thinking about something else.
Right.
And you've just altered your state of consciousness. You've started firing, going from 18, 20 cycles per second in the beta brainwave state. You've altered your state of consciousness to the alpha brainwave state, firing about 12 cycles per second. Literally, the biology of it is just slowing down your brain.
Right.
You start, your eyes are getting heavy. You start to, head starts to lean down. You're moving into the theta brainwave state. You're not asleep, but you're not really awake either. Now you really don't hear the teacher. You really are not present in the moment and in your awareness of space and time.
I think I spent most of my high school year like that.
Yeah, but now you're firing about 6 cycles per second.
Right.
And then the teacher, sees me, falling, asleep. I say, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And I jolt awake and I look around, everybody's staring at me and laughing because I got caught. And I'm looking at the board. I don't know how to do this problem. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what he said about the problem. And now I'm embarrassed and I'm stressed. Now I'm firing about 30 cycles per second because I'm in the stress response, the fight or flight response. I've just altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times in a matter of 7-8 minutes being bored in high school math class. We do this all the time. If you've ever had this experience of driving home and you're about 5-6 blocks away from where you live, and all of a sudden you start thinking about, oh, I gotta get to the store. Oh, I got that presentation on Wednesday. Oh, I gotta get the PowerPoint done. Ah, God, Roger didn't get me the numbers. And all of a sudden you find yourself in your driveway or your parking spot or your garage or something, and you don't remember that last 5 or 6 blocks. We just altered your state of consciousness.
It's like lost time.
Safely, you know how to drive home. If you lived there for a couple of years, 365 days a year, you've driven home thousands of times. You know how to drive home, like you know how to tie your shoes and zip up your jacket. It's a subconscious habit, driving home those last 5-6 blocks. Now, if you're driving someplace new in a new town somewhere, yeah, you're going to be really consciously aware of where you're going, but you're familiar with this. So the subconscious mind took over. Your conscious mind drifted off and started thinking about something else. All we do in therapeutic hypnosis is take advantage of that. What you're already doing. There's nothing magical or mystical about it. In fact, the word hypnosis comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who's the Greek god of sleep. Because back in the early 1800s, Dr. James Esdale, a surgeon, was working in India. And, back in the early 1800s, you don't have fancy hospitals or fancy anesthesia. If you're amputating a leg, you're biting down on a stick, or you're getting a blow to the head to knock you unconscious. Well, being in India, he learned about this trance state, and he started putting people into this deep, deep, deep trance state, so far under it looked like they were in a coma. And then he could do amputations. He could cut people up with a knife and take out tumors. He could sew people up and war wounds and injuries and things. Well, he took it back to England, and he started talking about it and teaching it. And this other doctor, Dr. James Bard, also started working with him, wanting a word to describe this coma-like state where you could do surgery and things to describe it to his colleagues and to write about it. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep. So he called it hypnosis. And since then, this word has grown to encompass all sorts of altered state of consciousness. And so it's not just a deep coma-like state, which they still use. They call it the Esdale state. And if you can watch videos on YouTube of people getting root canals and cavities drilled out, and they're allergic to the lidocaine or the novocaine or whatever. They're using hypnosis to remove themselves from the pain, even though they're consciously aware that their tooth is getting drilled into or being pulled or whatever. But they've removed themselves, their consciousness, or turned down the volume on that pain or whatever the kind of symbolic technique is. And it's not quite a coma-like state. And so it's this word hypnosis, the alpha, theta, delta, which is sleep, REM sleep, firing about 1/2 cycle per second. It's called the hypnagogic trance state. It's a fancy term. It's meaning you've altered your state of consciousness to move into the daydreamy and sleepy states. And so, again, it's nothing new or different. It's just we're taking advantage of what human beings do on a daily basis. And exactly the way they store their hurt and their pain to armor themselves to make sure they're not hurt again, we just reverse engineer it. So we don't do anything different, do anything new. And I know people, they've maybe seen the shows, the Las Vegas shows, the comedy club shows where people are up on stage dancing like Michael Jackson and singing like Elvis Presley and quacking like ducks and things. But understand, everybody that got up there volunteered to be up there. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. That's why smoking cessation, helping somebody quit smoking, is not 100% guarantee. Because if you don't want to quit smoking, you're not quitting smoking.
Right.
Otherwise, I could go in every Las Vegas casino and bar in Nevada and get everybody to quit smoking and everybody be healthier.
When I was a
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I remember my dad actually went to get hypnotized to quit smoking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember he had this little setup that he had to do and I'm sure they're all different, depending on who you go to. But
Yeah.
there was this cassette tape, and we had cassette tapes back
Yeah.
then. He had a cassette tape that he had to listen to, which I thought was interesting too, because what happens when you have to flip it?
Yeah.
But so he had this cassette tape he would listen to. I think he had to do it like twice a day, if I remember. It's been a long time. I don't remember all of it, but and then he had this little and I know what it is. I still remember the name of it, but it was like a little chain with a little
Pendulum.
pendulum, right? And
Yeah.
and he would sit there and he would just kind of like hold it over and just stare at it, and it
Yeah.
would somehow start, swaying on its own and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And supposedly that was the way to prove that he was hypnotized. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was interesting, but it was also fascinating too. So I'm interested and fascinated by all this stuff. I think the
Yeah.
human mind is the most incredible thing in all creation.
Yeah, and things like this. I mean, I have mine right here, my little pendulum. These are
Okay.
great for kids,
Mhm.
but it's the pocket watch thing that you see in the movies and things. It's just a focus of your attention so you get bored. You start watching this thing swinging, and then it's like, this is boring. And then it's like you move into that alpha brainwave state.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not that, again, I make you do that, and that's why they call it self-hypnosis. Really, it's all self-hypnosis. I can't make you go into hypnosis, just like I can't make you go into a daydream, or I can't make you pay attention.
Mhm.
You decide one way or another, maybe unconsciously, to get bored in high school math class. Otherwise, the teacher would make everybody pay attention. Everybody would get an A++. But people aren't into it. They have a different learning style, and they drift off. But just like those people in the shows, you can't make them get up there and act silly. But they're extroverts. They're exhibitionists. They want a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok or something. They want to get views. They want to get comments. They want to be the star of the show. And watch that. At the end of the show, they all have a big smile on their face because they had a great time. And who's that hypnotist going to pick? They're an entertainer. People paid $80 to get into that show. And who are they going to pick? The introvert in the back of the room in the shadows trying to sink down in their chair and hide? Or are they going to pick the extrovert who got there early to sit in the front row so they could jump up and down and say, pick me, pick me? Who's getting up on that stage? And even watch those shows, whether you go live, because they're fun. They're amusing. Go to those shows. Or watch them on YouTube. Oftentimes they'll bring up a bunch of people, like 10, 12, 15 people, because 2 or 3 of them are going to be excused because they can't do it. This guy can't make them go into hypnosis. And now they're in front of 100 people, 500 people, lights, and they're getting nervous. This guy doesn't have 20 minutes to relax everybody into hypnosis. He's got a show. Let's go. So they do a little process, and he's looking at facial muscles. There's just little cues people get, poker tells, or their eyes darting around while they're closed. Maybe he'll pick up their hand and just see if it flops. And if people are tense and rigid, they're not going to go into a deeper state where they can do silly things. So they're going to be excused off the stage. People see the Instagram stuff of these 30-second videos of somebody walking up to somebody on the street and going, sleep. And then they keel over and they do something. It's like, that was rehearsed and edited. And they know that person. They weren't a stranger. I dare anybody. Well, no, because I'll get sued. But don't do this. Do not go up to somebody on the street, walk right up to them and yell sleep in their face, because you're going to get punched in the face and they're going to run away.
Yes.
You can't do that. Otherwise, I guarantee you, I would have hypnotized Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check.
That would have been nice.
I don't have $1 billion check from Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whoever. It's because they don't want to write me one. And so, I can't go up to Elon Musk security and hypnotize my way into pitch him my good business idea and hypnotize him to fund my idea.
You actually answered my next question. I was going to ask you. You answered a couple of questions already. I was going to ask you what happens to the brain during hypnosis, and you kind of explained that already. And then I was also going to ask you if if you ever come across somebody who couldn't be hypnotized, and you kind of answered that question already, like, they have to want to.
Yes, they have to want to, and it's sort of like that. And this is again a great analogy. It was like, have you ever run into anybody who can't breathe? Well, I may have run into somebody who was so stressed and anxious that they held their breath.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we have to breathe. Our minds have to move into the alpha brainwave state. Now, if somebody's nervous, if the hypnotist or the hypnotherapist doesn't get in rapport with the person and they're making them feel uncomfortable, the person's not going to do it because they feel uncomfortable, maybe even afraid, maybe nervous of what they may discover about themselves or their past. Now, that's on the hypnotherapist. That's in their lap because they didn't do a good job of prepping them that this is how this work goes. This is your experience, or, doing a warm-up exercise or something. Everybody can do this because everybody does it.
I see.
That the intellectuals, Peter Siegel at Stanford talking to you, and it's not like I can go up against him in any sort of trivia Jeopardy contest because he's got a PhD and he does extraordinary work in terms of consciousness and studies. But they have these "can you be hypnotized" tests, and it's like, and they like their tests, and they're like, well, only there's this theory out there that only 20% of the people can't be hypnotized. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody's mind moves down to the alpha brain. You watch TV, your brain moves in the alpha brainwave state and become more susceptible. You become more susceptible to suggestions. Watching TV, they found that out in 1969. They discovered in 1969 that when watching TV, the brain moves into the alpha brainwave state, a more susceptible state of mind for suggestions. And that wasn't published in a medical journal. That was published in the Journal of Advertising and Marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And every commercial, every politician, every
advertising.
marketing agency knows that over the last 60 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so everybody can do it. Can you watch TV? Then you can do this. Can you drift off during a boring meeting at work or back in high school math class, or just sitting out on a blanket watching the clouds go by? Then you can do it. The problem becomes you may not be in rapport, or you may be working with somebody who you don't connect with, or you feel nervous and they don't realize it and don't know how to help you with that.
I see.
You can do it. There may be circumstances under which are not ideal for you and you feel uncomfortable, just like the people who get up on stage. They wanted to get up on stage. Nobody made them get up there. But then they got super nervous and they got stage fright, and now they're not going to do it. There's a TED Talk. I forget the guy's name and I forget the name of the talk, but I bet you if you put in hypnosis or hypnotherapy or something, maybe induction, but his whole TED Talk is doing rapid induction. So it's a TED Talk. This guy has got 18 minutes. And so he does and this is a professional. He just didn't learn yesterday. He's 30-year professional, and rapid induction is helpful for trauma and issues of that, like emergency rooms and things. And so he does a big, process with everybody in the room, quick little process. He's like, who felt they went into a really kind of deep process of relaxation? Who wants to come up here and I'll show you how to drop somebody into hypnosis and with a rapid induction. About 15 people raise their hands. They come up on stage, and this guy's dropping people, just boom, 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 doing his rapid induction techniques until he gets to like the 10th person. And this lady is so nervous that he can't drop her. This guy's a professional. He's dropped 9 people, and she won't, because now she's got 500 people staring at her with lights and cameras. And the more he tries, the more nervous she gets, and the more upset she gets and embarrassed. Now, if he had 20 minutes, he had 40 minutes, that's going to work out fine. This guy's got another 5 minutes before his talk's over. So he just like, well, you're fine, don't worry about it. And then he drops the next 4 people.
Right.
You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. She was so frightened and so nervous that she went up into, the stress response, firing at about 30 cycles per second. He couldn't drop her down to 10 cycles per second quickly. Being a professional, he could eventually do it because he talked to her and asked, reassure her and whatever the issue is. But in that instant, he couldn't make her do anything she didn't want to do. She felt unsafe because of everybody staring at her.
Sure.
And the stage fright. She felt unsafe, not with him specifically, but just in the situation. And she couldn't do it. Now, that doesn't mean she can't be hypnotized, because in the TED talk before, she might have been super bored and drifted off and started thinking about, the vacation she's about to take. So she put herself in a hypnosis state. So it's not that people can't, it's just that maybe the situation they find themselves in when they try to go into hypnosis, maybe with a therapist of some sort, that they feel uncomfortable and it's not going to work.
Is it dangerous for someone to try to put themselves into a
No. It's just like putting yourself in a daydream. Mm-hmm. Now, don't do it when you're driving. You don't put yourself in a daydream when you're going, 85 miles an hour down a long stretch of highway. That's the wrong time to be putting yourself in a daydreamy state, a hypnosis state. There's certain situations where you don't want to do it, but you can do it. You don't get stuck in it. That's the thing with that movie Office Space. What's funny is like they think it's like he got stuck in being a more awesome person and a more confident, strong, and empowered person, because if you remember that movie, the hypnotherapist had a heart attack and couldn't get him out of hypnosis. No, the hypnotist did the work and created a more stronger, confident person. And that he got stuck in that. It's like, no, he transformed and changed. Now it's funnier that the hypnotherapist had a heart attack and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's funny for the movie. But in terms of like, well, that's not how it works. There's a great example of this. There's a recording on YouTube. Richard Nongar, I do a lot of training with him. He's an extraordinary hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, been around for a long time. And I forget his YouTube channel, but if you put in Richard Nongar, one of his videos is like a self-hypnosis relaxation thing. It's like got 1 million views on it. And at the end, it was like 20 minutes. And at the end, he does something like, I'm going to count from 1 up to 5. And on 5, you'll return to being fully aware, fully alert, and go about your day feeling relaxed and happy and peaceful, strong and empowered. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just appreciate everybody for being here. And he forgets to say 5. Mm-hmm. Now, there isn't 1 million people stuck in hypnosis because he forgot to say 5. It's just, he didn't say 5. And that would have made the news by now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's 1 million zombies who seem to be stuck in some sort of catatonic state. It's like, no, it's just, he said he went 1 through 4 and forgot to say 5, and people went on with their lives. You can't get stuck in this like you can't get stuck in a daydream. Now, having said that, you probably are not going to do this work with somebody who's struggling with schizophrenia or any sort of extreme mental illness like that. Who has you need to work with somebody who has a basis in reality. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean an adult. You can work with this with kids. I work with a kid 9 years old, and for 2 years he was struggling with nightly nightmares, extreme nightmares, so much so he'd scream. One of the parents would have to sleep with him for the rest of the night, is disrupting, of course, their sleep patterns, creating relationship issues between mom and dad, the stress, the anxiety of it all, the fear that their child was struggling with this. They'd been to the psychologist, they'd been to the psychiatrist, they'd been to the sleep specialist, they'd been to the counselors for years, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they live here in Flagstaff, Arizona. My wife runs a wellness clinic here with massage, and she happened to be the massage therapist working on her, though it's her wellness clinic. She has other massage therapists, but she's working on this one. She's just crying as she's getting a massage, like my son, and the nightmares, and we don't know what to do, and we're afraid this is going to happen forever. And my wife said, well, Craig does hypnotherapy. He's in the office down the hall. Why don't you do some hypnotherapy? So I talked with her on the phone. A couple of days later, I found out he's this 9-year-old's a Star Wars fan, specifically The Mandalorian. And he came in and we sat in the lobby for a minute or two, and I just said, hey, this is what's going to happen. Make sure that you want to do this, because if you don't want to heal, no harm, no foul. I got stuff to do. You got stuff to do. We can leave right here. But if you're interested in healing and wanting to change this now, get up out of that chair and follow me to the office. And so he gets up out of the chair. He doesn't want these nightmares anymore. And so we go to my office. I had the door closed. I say, okay, I just want to make sure one more time. No harm, no foul. If you don't want to do this, but if you enter this door, you're going to change this situation. You are, not me. I don't do hard work. But you're going to do the work of changing this for yourself. And if you want to heal and change this right now, open the door and find which chair you need to sit in. I didn't tell him to go to the recliner. I didn't tell him to go to the easy chair. I didn't call him my desk chair. So he found which chair he wanted to sit in. His mom's in the room. We do, quote unquote, hypnotherapy. It's not like I put him in sort of trance state. I just said, I want you to pretend that you're in your bed. And what's Baby Yoda, Grogu or something like that. And Grogu's there. He even puts that big, ball of energy around you, protective energy. I want you to put a Mandalorian on each corner of your bed, above and below. And now let's run that nightmare. And it's ghouls and goblins and aliens and monsters and zombies. And just like, run it again. Let's run it again. Let's run it again. Now I'll run them all at the same time, and they all get evaporated and shot, and like bug zappers and whatever's happening. And did that, ran that, did a few more things. And I said, well, when you are ready, open your eyes, get out of the chair and open the door and get out of here. When you are ready, when you know that this is true, you're done. He took a few more moments, a few more breaths, and just like opened his eyes, just like looked around. And I said, are you done? He's like, yeah. Well, what do you need to do? He's like, got up, walked out the door, never had a nightmare again.
Wow.
45 minutes after
That's
2
amazing.
years of going to counselors and psychotherapists, and not just to pat myself on the back, but to show you the power of this. I didn't do anything.
Right.
He did it himself. And that's the extraordinariness of this.
Well, the mind is a powerful thing.
Yeah, and you add that again, and that's the shallow end of the pool. Again, imagine going into the deep end of the pool. It's the same pool. Imagine going into the deep end of the pool and the kind of healing you can achieve.
Yeah. Now, what I wanted to ask you this too, because we're the time that we have left here. So we did a regression with me on Saturday, and you've done how many regressions would you say you've done over the course of your career?
Oh, good Lord! Oh, that's hundreds. I don't know. That's actually a really good question. I don't know.
The reason why I'm setting it up for this, because I'm sure that you've had experiences where you may have had some doubts about whether this was really insight that they were having, or if this was imagination.
Yeah.
How do you separate that? How do you determine that? And are you the one that would have to bring that to their attention, saying, well, I'm not so sure that this is what you think it might be?
Oh, no, I'd never say that. No. Because I don't know. Because again, they're only narrating probably 10, 20% of their experience.
Right.
And just like, it's like that kid with the nightmare. At the end of it, I was like, okay, what did you experience? Well, I experienced, the Mandalorians by my bedside, but they also had lightsabers and samurai swords, which of course, I'm like, Mandalorians don't have samurai swords. Are you, what? That doesn't make any sense. That must have been all fake. I'm not going to tell him that.
True.
He's creating the healing in himself. And so if somebody's, again, I don't know. I don't know if that's a real experience or not a real experience, because again, they're bringing in this 5D digital information with a fire hose into this funnel, trying to be processed by a 3D analog brain. If you saw Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, that was a great movie. One of my most favorite movies, especially one of my most favorite Christopher Nolan movies. And I love Batman. But I think that's my most favorite Christopher Nolan movie, and I've seen it the most of all his movies. And not to give anything away, but that's an old movie. I mean, that's been out for 15 years. So if you haven't seen it, don't get all upset with me. But I'm not going to give away too much. But people will know who've seen the movie, and this won't ruin the movie for anybody. And you probably won't understand what I'm talking about. But at the end, when he's in the 5D world, after all that happened, towards the end of the movie, he's in that weird 5D world.
Mm-hmm.
He has to communicate with the 3D world of Earth. Well, he can't just call on the phone. He can't use a cell phone to call. He can't, shout at the person. he has to come up with unique ways of communicating from the 5D world to the 3D world. So he's pushing the books off the bookshelf. He's making the watch use a Morse code. He's doing the dust on the floor, right? So he can't communicate to the 3D world in a natural way that you and I would communicate to each other.
Okay.
Writing a letter, texting, emailing, talking on the phone, shouting from my house to your house. He has to find unique ways. And I think this more spiritual aspect of this is somewhat the same. Our brains have to configure this information in a way that we will understand it.
I see.
And so even if somebody has an experience of like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's real. It's like, it may have been a real experience. It's just that you're downloading it in a way that may make it seem like you're making it up. If I'm making any sense. It's sort of like we go up to spirit world, right? So what's going to happen in a past life regression, the way I work with it, there's different ways of working with it. But if we're doing like an hour and a half, we're doing a 3-hour session, what's going to happen is we're going to go to this past life. Now, if somebody lives to be 103 years old, we can't go through every hour of that 103 years. That's
Right.
impossible time-wise. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on 4 or 5 significant events in that life. We're picking a phrase, sort of like turning the channel to the right TV station to watch the program you want, or picking the right book off the bookshelf. So we're going to go like the phrase would be something like, go back to the past life that is most influencing your current life. Go back to the past life that is the cause of this deep fear of ocean water you have in this current life. Go back to the past life that is the cause of all the anger and rage you feel in this life after years and years of talk therapy cannot resolve. We're going to go to that past life. You're going to start experiencing that, opening it up in a way it needs to, maybe slowly, as the brain starts digesting and translating this information. And we're then going to go, okay, I want you to fade and fade away that scene. And I'm going to count to 3. And you're going to move to another significant event in that life, whether you're younger, older, or the same age. 1, 2, 3.
I remember we did this in my experience.
Sorry. And we're going to go do that 4 or 5 times. We're going to get to the end of that life, the last breath. And what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Are you vowing revenge? Is life easy or hard? Is love safe or unsafe?
When you asked me that, when we were doing our session,
Yeah.
I think that was the most difficult part of the whole thing for me.
Yeah.
It really was, because it was I'm not say painful like in a physical sense. Emotionally, it was painful.
Yeah.
And that
But
was
that's
very
where a lot of that work, because I was asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
While you're still in that body, the last few moments, what are the feelings? What are and not just in the last moment, like someone got shot, I would expect you to be in pain. But I'm talking about in terms of how do you feel about life? Is life easy or hard? Is love safe or unsafe? What about family? What about wealth? What about abundance? What are you thinking about these things? Because this could be connecting you to your current life in some way. And then you pass from that body. Now you're in the soul state. What does that feel like? I was asking you about that. I mean, people sense it like an energy or a light. Was that comfortable or uncomfortable, pleasant or unpleasant, moving out of the body? What does it feel like now? Are you being moved towards it? Can you move on your own?
I remember I had told you that it felt like I was moving at a very, very fast speed, and I felt I could actually, while I was sitting there in the chair, I actually felt like wind in my face.
Yeah, I remember that because I remember I sped it up a bit because sometimes people, I don't know if there's a great way of saying it, but kind of drag their feet. They don't want to leave Earth, or they want to make sure their family's okay, or that situation kind of gets resolved because it was a, awful way of ending life or something,
Yeah.
So they kind of hang around or drag their feet and not wanting to leave. And I remember, you were like, oh yeah, I'm out of here. And so, kind of in a way, and I'm like, oh, okay. On 5, you're going to be at the gateway to spirit world. And so I kind of cut some stuff, because there's a bit of jazz to this, a bit of improvisation.
Sure.
And then, arriving in spirit world, I'm going to ask you, how are you experiencing this? Because again, you're downloading all this extraordinary information that's trying to get processed and analyzed and translated by this 3D brain of ours. And, we'll go to the healing place. This is very important. And whether you're here to heal or just to discover and have fun, we always go to healing place because there may be things unknown that you need to disengage from or resolve. And so, and just like Michael Newton's books that he talks about, you can go to the healing place, and his books are based off thousands of people's experience of soul world that he worked with personally in the 70s and 80s, 20 years of research before he produced that first book, Journey of Souls. And one of the places people seem to go to is this healing place. Now, you're going to experience it maybe differently than the person who does a past life regression the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may, the healing place, and there was this beautiful water, like a beautiful lake I was swimming in, or this beautiful waterfall, or it was like with light, or this energy, and I can't describe the colors, or these healing beings had these glowy rods that look futuristic. Well, I'm going to guess as souls, as this soul energy, there's no water there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a symbolic, metaphoric way of having your 3D brain understand that healing is happening. Now, I'm going to put big money down that actual spiritual healing that person is going through did not happen with water.
I'm sure, yeah.
But that's how they had to metaphorically experience it with their brain in terms of translating information. So this question you're asking me is like yes and no. Mm-hmm. They're having a metaphoric, symbolic experience of a real thing happening. And that's kind of a brain twister. Yeah. But they're having this 5D digital experience that's being translated by a 3D analog brain. And so there's going to be some translation issues so that you understand that, what's happening. I start off my book, and this is the extraordinariness of this. And as you experienced, Joe, we're having a conversation through this whole thing, through this entire process. You're explaining your experience, you're describing what is happening, and that's to help me help guide and facilitate. Maybe if there's some intensity to it, turn down the volume or move to the next thing and shut it down because it's too intense. But it's also for the recording so you can review later. Right. It's sort of like narrating a movie. Okay, and now now Joe Pesci is doing this and Robert De Niro is doing that. And so it's like you can read the transcript later and remember certain scenes of the movie. So, but when we get to the healing place, that's kind of private. Mm-hmm. And so I allow people to have some privacy. I'll encourage, make sure they're okay, check on their ecology, make sure they're doing well. But I'm not specifically asking the information, the private information they're going through. Now, if they want to describe it, that's fine. That's up to them. But I'm not investigating, and I'm not asking, interrogating, I guess would be the way to say it. And so I'm working with this woman. I started up my book with this story, and she's in the healing place. She's doing this healing, and it's taking a while. And people take the time. That's why I like the longer sessions. People take the time they need to heal, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but she's taking like 18, 20 minutes. Fine, you take the time you need to. I'm checking in. I'm making sure she's doing all right. I'm kind of observing, lifeguarding the situation. Well, she says, I'm complete. And so we move on to the next thing. We kind of got an outline we need to follow through because eventually we'll need to wrap up the session. And a few days later, I check in with people, 3 or 4 days later, see how they're doing. If they have any insights. I love hearing people's stories. They have any insights, just making sure they're all right. They got the recording and everything. And she emails back. She says, 20 years of chronic hip pain is gone. And so I didn't know she had hip pain. It's not what we were working on.
Right.
She didn't explain her physical discomfort. She was working on some different issue, kind of a more emotional issue. And it's something she had just dealt with, she lived with. She'd been to the doctor. She'd been to the physical therapist. She's had the MRIs, the x-rays. There's nothing wrong with her hip, so to speak. There's nothing any of the doctors can do with, physical therapy or surgery or anything. There's quote unquote nothing wrong with her hip that should be causing this chronic pain that she's had for 2 decades. So she lives with it. She leans into it, and this is just the way life's going to be. Mm-hmm. And so she does this hypnotherapy session over Zoom. It's just a virtual session, and doesn't mention it. says nothing about it. She goes to the healing place. And one of the aspects of it, I might ask people if they notice any cords, negative cords connecting them to that past life or any other past life that may be influencing their experience in this current life. Sort of like the cord that connects your blender to the outlet on the wall.
Right. Yeah.
I say, pull them out. If there's a negative cord connecting you to that past life or any other past life, known or unknown, pull it out. And I actually want you to do this. And this is, and so you see people pulling stuff. Maybe it's one cord, maybe it's many cords, maybe it's in the back of their neck or their head or their back or their
Just
heart.
made me think of the scene in The Matrix when Neo wakes up in the pod.
Starts pulling all that stuff out. And so it's the same exact thing, only metaphoric, of course. And she says she had this big, huge cord on her hip. And that's what was taking so long. She couldn't pull it out. And now she's not describing this during the session. She's just doing her healing work. She's trying to pull it out. And so in her experience, she asked her spirit guide who is with her to pull it out. Her spirit guide cannot pull it out. So they gather all the healing beings that are in this healing space. And they do one of those tug of war things where everybody grabs it and just starts pulling. And they finally pull out this big, huge cord attached to her hip, and her hip pain disappears.
Wow. When
she emailed me, she had been, after 20 years of chronic hip pain, she had been pain-free for about 4 days.
Wow.
And granted, that's more of a rare kind of thing where you're dealing with an actual physical bodily healing.
Right.
But,
wow.
You've probably heard of those and even talked about those extraordinary stories of the kids or here, like they have the reincarnation experience and they start talking about this other life and find out that they got shot or stabs and there's a birthmark, kind of a scar or a scarring or something right where they're supposedly shot or got stabbed or something.
Yeah, I've read those. I've read stories about that. Yeah, that's amazing. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and so there's more to this than what meets the eye.
Now, let me ask you, is there anybody who shouldn't be messing around with regression?
Yeah. Again, you're the people who are struggling with mental illness. Certainly, you don't want to work with anybody who's schizophrenic or maybe in the manic phase of bipolar disorder, something like that. There's a certain way of how people speak, which makes you think. It just kind of gives you the idea that this isn't a good idea. People who, I've run into people who contact me and say, and I'm not making fun of people or anything because I know people are going through stuff, but it's just like, I know I'm Jesus Christ and I know I want to remember some of my teachings. So, because I know I have to get these teachings out to the world right now. And I know I've been, I'm here to tell people these teachings as Jesus. And so I'm not going to work with that person. It feels uncomfortable and that person doesn't seem well. No, I can't diagnose people. I can't analyze their situation. I'm not going to read their medical history or understand what medications they're on or talk to their doctor or anything. Certainly not going to prescribe for them, but it doesn't feel comfortable to me. And you meet these people at the coffee shop or on the street or at the meeting or, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, there's something just doesn't feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
But of course, if somebody's, schizophrenic or having some sort of extraordinary mental issue, I wouldn't do this if somebody was like, on ayahuasca or LSD. I don't feel comfortable, working with psychedelics or anything. Maybe that's possible. I just don't know enough about it.
I don't know. That to me, I agree. I wouldn't even mess with it if that was presented to me, because who knows what doorways you open up in that person. And you may
exactly. I think there just comes a point where you can help people, but then there comes a certain point where it's and again, I have my own paranoia around LSD. I mean, just here's another rabbit hole as we get to the end of the show. But the whole psychedelics thing, and I mean, this may have been my religious upbringing or just the crazy stories you read in paperback books of the people who do, and maybe it's more of an anti-drug propaganda, but you take LSD and then you lose your mind and you don't come back from reality. So I'd be just uncomfortable because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that aspect of changing brain chemistry and then trying to do a regression. So
yeah, I can understand that. So Craig, what's one thing that still surprises you about the work you do?
That people actually do have these experiences.
Mhm.
As many as I've done with people and the trainings I've gone through over the years, I was just talking about doing a training with Brian Weiss over the summer and having my own experience. I wasn't doing the training. I was a participant and we were doing past life regression. I'm having my own experiences
Mhm.
and then guide people through their own and the healing that they happen. And I just, it's just like, how is this happening? This is extraordinary. And again, I think there's that bit of skepticism of just who I am as Craig Meriwether. Whereas I really want Bigfoot to be real, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I get you.
And then, but if it's that kind of thing of like, and that's not the greatest metaphor in the world, but it's just that people do this work and they have an extraordinary experience and they email days later. I mean, your experience that you were talking about, I spent days, that whole afternoon, I kept, downloading new information. This makes so much more sense now. And people understand their purpose more and it gives them a sense of relief and hope, that they're here for a reason.
Mhm.
Even if that's a construct of the subconscious mind, they have hope that they have been put here and their life has worth and is valuable. And it's not that I'm telling them that. They are telling them that, or their higher self or their spirit guide. Pick which one you like, whether it's their own subconscious mind, it's their higher self, their spirit guide.
Yeah.
They now walk away knowing they are worthy, that there is hope for the future and that the pain they have gone through maybe was happening so they can get to a point of strength and power and confidence and groundedness and centeredness. And that while not fun and people certainly need to be in jail and have, protective orders against them and things that, well, maybe I can find strength and power through this experience that I let go of and did this deep healing work. And I still do it. Like, I was like, work with somebody with you a couple of days ago. And it's just like, wow, that was wild.
Mm-hmm.
That you had that experience.
Yeah.
And people, people just like, yeah, I'm in this, they don't even know where they are. Like the scene really hasn't opened up. They're just like, I don't know. I'm really anxious right now.
That's something like I went through.
And it's just like, you're calm, you're comfortable. We're laughing. We're talking about how this is going to work, and you're having a nice experience. And now arrive in your past life, and you're like, I don't know. Something about that experience has turned on the stress response, and it changed the chemistry in your brain to create that feeling of anxiety or stress.
Right.
What is happening?
Yeah, because when we did it on Saturday, we went through a warm-up exercise where I was home at my parents' house where I grew up back in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
and it was great. I loved it. It was fantastic. I remember. I think I even said in the transcript.
Yeah, it's a joyful experience.
I don't want to leave. I want to stay there.
It's that home thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when we went into the actual regression portion, I remember the first thing I felt was like, I don't want to be here. This isn't where I'm. What's wrong? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I want to go home. Yeah. And so, which was interesting, and I still got goosebumps from this.
What just Joe's talking about real quick is this: we always do a warm up exercise, just like 10 minutes, just kind of get people comfortable. This is again where you just making people feel comfortable, getting into rapport, and allowing them to, have the experience of moving into this more relaxed, meditative like state. Visualize a movie theater. And on the movie theater, you see your home. And, and it's the aspect of what you want is a lucid memory. If lucid dreaming, where you take control of the dream, Well, this is why you kind of want to control the memory in a certain way in terms of, well, if you want more information, zoom out, like a drone shot in a movie or a crane shot in a movie, or zoom in. There's a book on the book table and I can't see it. Well, zoom in or turn up the lights or turn down the lights, or you want to have that experience. So that warm-up exercise shows you like, oh, be in your kitchen. Like, see your kitchen up on a movie screen. You're sitting in this movie theater. Now walk into your kitchen. So you're there. And everybody, what fascinates me more than anything else is that we're going through the 5 senses: lights, music. You hear the radio's playing or the stereo's playing. You hear music. Change the song. Turn up the volume. Turn down the volume. But when we get into more kinesthetic stuff, feel the floor with your bare feet. Is it tile, linoleum, brick, that fake wood stuff? Is it cool, cold, warm?
Mm-hmm.
And people will tell you. I've had people not hear music. Fine, you're not very, an auditory person. That's fine. There's no right or wrong way to experience this warm-up exercise. Everybody feels the floor, and everybody feels temperature.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting at home. Maybe they're in my office. They're wearing socks. They're wearing slippers. Maybe they're wearing shoes. They're not barefoot in their kitchen, and yet they feel their kitchen floor. They can describe the floor, what it's made of, and whether it's cool. And then with the little control board on the counter, well, if the heat coils underneath the tile or the linoleum warm up the floor. Oh yeah, it's more comfortable now.
Yeah, I will vouch for this because we did that on our session on Saturday.
Yeah,
and I was wearing sneakers, socks, the whole 9 yards, and I felt exactly what you described. I felt the floor, I felt the temperature of the floor, the condition of the floor, and then we did the warm up. Turn the heat up on the floor, warm it up a little bit. I felt that, and I'm telling you, it happened. I was wearing the shoes. I was not barefoot. And it was an incredible experience. And what I'd like to do is, because we're coming up on 9 o'clock, we got to wrap it up. What I'd like to do, Craig, is like to have you come back after the new year at some point when you have time and kind of get into more of this stuff, because I have a ton more questions I wanted to ask you that we weren't really able to get to because it was just the way the conference. But then again, you and I have had these conversations already, so it's like,
we already had an hour conversation. We had a conversation during and I told you, it's like there's so many rabbit holes and it's so fascinating you can't get it done.
But next time we'll get through some of it, and then
we'll get through more. Yeah.
All right, Craig.
So just real quick about your experiences.
Yeah.
I asked people in the visualization as they're sitting in a movie theater, and up on the screen is your home. I never say which home. I never say your house you're living in right now in this moment. Mm-hmm. I say your home, because again, I don't know if they live in a condo, in an apartment, a house, a farm, or whatever. And so I say your home. Maybe they live in a camper, an RV. I don't know. And so I say home. And what was extraordinary is just because you've mentioned it before, and this is rare. People usually end up in the kitchen they have right now, whatever their kitchen is. But maybe 10% of the people go back to the kitchen they grew up in. And considering that, how much of the theme you experienced was home, I thought that was extraordinarily fascinating. Again, I don't know what that means. Yeah. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means everything. And again, this is not I'm not here to analyze you or prescribe for you or diagnose you, but it's that experience of starting to put things together where you asked me a little bit ago, it's like, what do you like about it? It's like this. Yeah. Like you went to your childhood home in your kitchen, and then some of these other aspects, these themes keep coming up around home. Mm-hmm. And, all that you're experiencing in this life. And what does that mean? No, I don't know. I can't tell you that, but as in the days and weeks and months ahead, as maybe you return to that transcript and you write in your journal and you talk to other people on your show, that more insights will come to you, and the more understanding and more wisdom comes to you from that experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Craig, where can we go to find out more about you and your work, my friend?
Best way is just sacredmysteryhypnotherapy.com. You can find the book on Amazon, Past Lives Guidebook, plural, lives, Past Lives Guidebook, pastlivesguidebook.com. But Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, as you can tell, I love talking about this. Happy to have a conversation with you over Zoom or the phone. And if you want more information or email, and I'll talk to you all night long about it.
All right. Well, I do have your links, so we'll make sure that all of those are updated in the show notes so everybody can just click on them and get to you. Craig Meriwether, thank you very much, sir. This was really an incredible experience over the weekend, and thank you so much for that. And And this conversation today was just fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the audience did too. And I hope you got something out of this. And listen, I already have some friends that are interested in hooking up and getting to talk to you about a few things. So I'm hoping that takes place.
Yeah.
And this was fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to getting with you after the new year.
Yeah, definitely. Again, there's so many. We usually end up with more questions than answers. So happy to come back and talk about whatever you like to talk about.
All right, outstanding. All right, Craig, I'm going to let you go at this point. I got to close out the show here. All right.
All right. Thank you,
All
Joe.
right.
It's good seeing you.
God bless you. Merry Christmas, by the way.
Yeah, you too. Happy New Year.
Thank you. See you back.
Yeah. See ya.
All right, folks. Craig Meriwether. Man, that was great. I'm telling you that I had such a wonderful experience on Saturday, and very calm, very relaxed, very, very comforting. Yeah, there were some tense moments there as we were going through the therapy session, but I'm telling you, if this is something that you're interested in and you're curious about these things, this is the guy to go to. You got to check him out. All right. With all of that said, my friends, don't forget, head over to the website, joerooz.com. Check out the programming announcements email list. Get yourself on the list. If you are interested in becoming a guest on a show like this, whether it's mine or somebody else's, head over to Podmatch. Join podmatch.com/Joe Rooz. Join podmatch.com/Joe Rooz. Get yourself on that platform. It's a great platform. This show is a part of the Podmatch podcast network. And so we do all of our bookings through Podmatch. It is fantastic. Get on board with it. Join podmatch.com/Joe Rooz. If you want to head over there and just take a look what the profile looks like, you can message me through there as well. You can DM me through PM, podmatch.com/member/Joe. And you get all the information about becoming a member of Podmatch there as well. And great platform to be on. Should try it out, definitely. And that's how we found Craig. Craig is a member of Podmatch as well. The AlexJonesStore.com/Joe. That's our affiliate link for the Alex Jones Store. Get yourself some vitamins and supplements. This stuff is great for you. I've been taking this stuff for a while. Have no complaints about it whatsoever. The ultimate Irish sea moss, the ultimate the ultramethylene blue, the turmeric, the shilajit, all that stuff. Fantastic products, and there's so much more. Check them out. TheAlexJonesStore.com/Joe. TheAlexJonesStore.com/Joe. All right. Don't forget the socials: Twitter, Truth Social, Minds, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Getter, all those places, some variation of Joe Rooz. So you'll be able to find me there really, really easily. Shout outs, of course, to our executive producers, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Marissa Lee, and Anonymous Angela. Thank you guys for all that you guys do, donating your time, your talent, and your treasure. And if you want to help us out with a donation, you can do that very easily. We can do a one-time donation in any amount, a recurring donation in any amount. If you want to be a producer of the show, associate producer is $17.76 a month. Producers are $18.36 a month. And of course, executive producers are $25 a month. And if you are an executive producer level, you get to come on the show with us and spend some time with us for a segment and get to know the audience. And the audience get to know you and all the great things that you help us do in keeping the show going. That's why we have our Wednesdays with Wayne segment. So Wayne is one of our executive producers. You heard me mention his name. And so he comes on the show on Wednesday. All the producers get the shout out on every show, included in all the show notes, emails, everything that goes out from the show, because as producers, we wouldn't be able to do it without you. So thank you so very much for it. All of our crypto information's up there as well. So you can, if you want to donate cryptocurrencies, we can do that also. All right. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. So thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Listen, folks, have a very, very Merry Christmas. Enjoy the time with your family. Make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. And keep talking. We'll see you Sunday, folks. Have a great one.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then.
Who cares about the clouds if we're together?
Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather.
Happy trails.